Tonight we have a special presentation that the Township Manager and DPS Director has prepared for us. Lists several items, and I think the purpose of this is to reflect on all the things we have going on that the DPS is responsible for. So Derek, you got the floor.
I want this presentation to kind of be a two-way street. If you guys have comments or questions about some of the different projects we worked on over the past 12 to 18 months and currently are working on, feel free to interrupt and ask because there are still some ongoing projects that we'll go over on the presentation tonight. But as the chairman had mentioned, wanted to take the opportunity to just reflect a little bit on the various projects that we've been working on and continue to work on behalf of the residents, and just kind of bring everybody up to speed as to where we're at with some of these projects, and also reflect on the ones that are completed. So as everybody knows, we did a lot of road work this past summer and are still currently doing road work. So that's the first set of projects I wanted to go over. All of this work was funded through the road maintenance millage and also the millage, road improvement millage that was passed by the voters last year. So we'll touch on a couple of different maintenance projects, but also some of the capital projects that we worked on. The picture before you is a picture of a milling machine. A large portion of the road work that we did this year involved this piece of machinery, and was primarily the process is to take the 3 or 4 inches of surface off the existing road and then put new material down. So the first step in that process is to remove the old, and then the paver comes in afterwards and resurfaces that road. So one of the roads we worked on was South Point, resurfacing from Swan Island to Johnson. So that was right near that bridge, near Swan Island Drive, the bridge that crosses the canal, right past Johnson. So that was one area that was resurfaced. Church Road, resurfaced from Meridian to West River. Under our project list, this was, I think, the first road that they actually resurfaced. I don't know that it was originally on our project list, but it was eventually added, being that the Church Road stretch between Meridian and East River Road was repaved last year. This completed the resurfacing of that entire stretch. We also did the resurfacing, or the new surface of portions of the gravel roads that intersect Church. So we went back a certain distance to make sure that some of that gravel didn't come onto Church Road when we did that project. And this was full width, so we tried to extend as much as we could the road width where it was possible. So we actually got a little bit wider of a road than what was there previously. So Church Road, Meridian to West River Road. West River Road, starting from Church and going to Meridian. So when I say Meridian, I mean around the bend at the north end of West River. This was a mill and fill as well. We had also did some drainage work on that stretch of road, so we already had new surfaces in those areas, so that saved us a little bit not having to redo those when we did this stretch. But this is obviously one of the worst sections of road that we had within the community, and I think the residents and that live on this stretch, but also the residents in general, were very relieved with the work that was done here, and took care of a lot of issues that were long-standing in the stretch. So from Grow Road all the way down to the north end of West River Road, all of that road is in pretty good shape now. So you can drive from one end of the island to the other end of the island on West River Road, and for the most part drive on newer surfaces. Horse Mill, this was a 2-inch mill and fill, so it was a little bit less of a depth. But if you recall, the drivability of that road wasn't great. There was a lot of washboarding, a lot of bumpiness to it. So we took that surface level off and replaced the 2 inches on the top. And that's a very nice, now drivable surface all the way from Meridian, all the way down to Park Lane. So that was, I think, welcome relief for those that travel that road. We were able to realize some savings as we went through the project. We had less full depth replacement than we thought was necessary and was built into the budget. So when it came time to closing the project out, we had some capital that was available that was part of the bid, and we had money budgeted but wasn't used. So what we did is we appropriated those dollars that weren't used under the budget that we had established for that road work, and added in Canal, and also HCL Jackson Drive, which is off a canal. Those roads weren't in horrible shape, but they would have required a substantial amount of crack and joint sealing, which we could have spent probably close to $150,000 crack sealing those stretches, and I think we spent about $350,000 resurfacing those stretches. So rather than spend that money to crack and joint seal, we just went ahead and put that towards a resurfacing. So that was a nice addition that wasn't originally planned, but with those additional monies and the favorable bids that we received, we wanted to optimize those good dollar figures we got and added those projects on with the money that we had already budgeted for. And that's, once again, HCL Jackson Drive was the other, from canal to canal. So that was kind of, it comes off a canal and then it wraps back around a canal. So that work was done as part of the project list that wasn't originally anticipated.
What did they do, rotomill it?
They rotomilled it. Yep, that's actually an overlay.
Yeah, it's
So-
concrete road, and the county came in when the people were complaining about it being so bad with the concrete.
Right.
And they put that 2 inches of asphalt on top of the concrete
Yep.
many years ago.
And it lasted quite a long period of time.
It did.
So we just went right back down to concrete and then resurfaced the 2 inches that was there. So we're hopeful that, that lasts as long as the original 2 inches lasted. So the concrete didn't look too horrible underneath. A lot of times when you have an overlay like that, you'll get the reflection of the cracking or the joints below it. But with it being a concrete overlay, we should probably see pretty good longevity out of that. And not a whole lot of wet surfaces underneath there too, so there wasn't much in the way of undermining of the asphalt surface through moisture, so I think we're going to be in pretty good shape. East River Road, Groseal Parkway to Manchester. So this was another stretch of road that we had planned on doing as part of the road project. There was some question about the shoulder here and why that wasn't redone. BPAC has authorized the chip sealing company to come back and fog that, so at least it puts it into a similar look to what the resurfaced road is, and also maintains its longevity. So that will be done hopefully yet this fall with the chip sealing contractor. But I believe this was 3.5 or 4 inches that they went down on this stretch of road. East River south of Grow, so this is Grow Road all the way to the Meso Island Bridge was resurfaced, and I believe this is a 4 inch as well. That turned out really well. Nice road, nice stretch of road now. If you recall, it was in pretty poor condition overall. A lot of cracking, a lot of alligatoring. So with the 4 inches, we should see pretty good longevity out of that stretch of road. Bellevue, East River to Meridian, was another stretch of road that was planned as part of our road project. And initially, the road appeared to be in good shape as far as its resurfacing, but we did, once we got some moisture on the ground, realize that there were a couple of areas where we had some ponding. So we do have some punch list items, some work that still has to occur on Bellevue to facilitate some drainage. What we ran into was Bellevue has a lot of intersecting driveways that have different elevations. So as the contractor came and resurfaced the road, they tried to modify the elevations to meet the driveway intersection heights. So what you ended up with was a road that kind of went like this a little bit because they were trying to make those driveways match into the existing pavement. So that's where some of the ponding is coming from. And also we have a lot of built-up shoulder on that road. So the contractor's going to come back and do some shaving of the elevated shoulder in areas where the water was getting trapped on the road because it didn't have the ability to flow off. So that's where some of that ponding came from. We have a couple of minor areas where there's some problems with the slope with that driveway issue. They're going to come back and put a hot pad on that and actually reshape the asphalt in those areas. And that's supposed to actually happen this week or the beginning of next. The drainage work on some of the elevated shoulders has actually already started. So there are some punch list items on Bellevue. That project on that stretch or that roadway is not complete yet. So
What did they do around the manholes that were they were so sunk when you go down there, they boom, boom?
on Bellevue,
Yeah.
well, you'll notice that they kind of pitched it down a little bit to them. So they tried to make it flush as they could.
Because I know that the sewer separation project, when they put that in, they paved Bellevue.
Uh-huh.
And then they kind of settled around the manholes,
Right.
some of them.
Yeah.
It was
So we didn't raise the manholes, we didn't change the elevation of the rims or anything like that, but they kind of feathered it in the best that they could. They did pave back on some of the numbered streets over there to keep the gravel off, and we were pooling a decent amount of water there, so they've got to roto-mill some of those back and readdress the crown in some of those areas. So there is still some work that has to happen on the numbered streets. 3rd Street was another road that was added to the list. So you had Canal and HCL Jackson and 3rd that were added with the additional money we had left over from the lack of the full depth replacement that was necessary. So you'll see that 3rd Street was a full repaving, mill and fill, up to the Centennial Farm. And that was a curb and gutter, but it was just in kind of poor shape. But it was a good candidate for that. With it being curb and gutter, we got a pretty good road, and everything's confined with the curb and gutter. So it was a good candidate for that. So that was an additional road that I don't know that's on this presentation, but it was part of the additional work that we did. We're still currently working on Park Lane. There was a substantial amount of drainage work that had to be done out there, just turning it from a dirt road into a paved road. A lot of culvert work, a lot of storm structure work, a lot of grading and pitching that needed to happen. They were supposed to have started doing the final grade on the road surface last Thursday and Friday. I didn't make it down there on Monday or Tuesday to see if that's complete yet or not, but the paving of that should be happening here fairly shortly. But a lot of the delay has been because of the grading and the drainage work that had to happen there. So that'll all be a new surface. They've actually got to take a decent amount of the existing road off and put some stone back. So the final grade work that has to happen there is going to be pretty substantial, so that might take some time to do that. But if you have an opportunity to drive down there, you'll see when you drive that stretch, all the drainage work that had to happen for that project. It was pretty substantial. We did do a variety of intersections as well. West River Road ramp was one of them. If you recall, we did some drainage work. This intersection here used to pool a lot of water. We installed a new storm drain here and a new storm outlet going underneath the road. So there was a trench that was cut there and was backfilled with cold patch. So we wanted to make sure that this intersection got repaved in order to clean that up, and that turned out pretty well. Additional intersections, South Point and Grow Road and East River, Bellevue and Meridian, and Church and West River. So there were 4 additional intersections that were completed. We also did some work by the wastewater treatment plant on repaving that stretch, and then also some work at the Church Road and West River Road intersection when we did that work. So the total contract cost for all that was about $2.9 million. And we probably won't realize that full contract because included in there is a fair amount of contingency, but we'll go over that budget later on in the presentation. So just keep that in mind. With our road millage funds and also with some of our road maintenance funds, we did a couple of different projects this year. First one being chip sealing that came out of our road millage. Crack and joint sealing and dust control came out of our road maintenance account. So we'll go over that really quickly here. Chip seal, East River Road, Manchester to Grow. So that's over here on the east side. Chip seal South Point Grow to Chatham. So we chip sealed a portion of the road and we repaved a portion of the road. So that was kind of a combination project. And then we're looking at adding, hopefully yet this fall, East River farther south between Mesa Island Bridge and Hickory Island, Dallas Court or Dallas Circle, and then Bridge Road from Meridian to would be Park Lane, right? Park Lane. Yep. So that is planned to occur yet in September here. As far as crack sealing, we did a variety of different roads based upon their candidacy for crack sealing. They were all asphalt roads. We didn't pave or do any crack sealing on any concrete roads. And this is a very cost-effective process. I think we spent about $60,000 or $65,000. It was a competitive bid. We worked with a variety of different neighboring communities. Allen Park, Lincoln Park, I believe was part of it. Gibraltar, Riverview. We all competitively bid together the package of crack sealing that we put out to get the best price, because my contract here in Gibraltar is $60,000. Gibraltar in Groseal $60,000. Gibraltar might be $50,000. Riverview's $100,000, so on and so forth. And individually, we can't leverage that footage to try to get the best price, but collaboratively we can. So that's what we did. So we spent right around $65,000, and that got us Ferry, Thoroughfare, and that's Thoroughfare south of Church, Island Drive, Highland, and then Meridian north of, it's actually north of Bridge Road. So it's as you go north. And then in the Highland Island Drive area, especially the Island Drive area, there's a lot of side roads in there. And we did all of the side roads. It wasn't just Island Drive. It was actually a lot of the subdivisions in that area. So we were able to touch a lot of different areas. We also did Park Lane between actually just south of the northern intersection of Meridian and Park Lane. So we moved south down towards Bridge. So that's that whole triangle point at the north end of the island we pretty much did. So, and this is something that if the communities are going to competitively bid it next year, something we should definitely take advantage of, because it really does prolong the life of these roads. And a chip seal following that is actually a really good 1-2 punch for the preservation of those roads. So just keep that in mind. We do have ongoing road work. I did speak about Bellevue, and we have a couple other punch list items that still have to be completed. Striping is supposed to occur next week in the intersections or at the intersections that weren't already striped. And then some of the correction of the drainage issues on Bellevue. And there's still some, restoration work with shoulder work and stuff that needs to happen. That's probably about 50% complete so far with the contractor. Concrete work, we've already done a fair amount on Grays Drive, Cadillac Circle, Rivard Court, Country Club Lane, Calm Meadow Court. They're working, or they will be working here shortly, on more on Cadillac Circle, Cadillac Court they're going to be working on. There's some patchwork on Chatham, and then we'll move over to potentially like Park Lane, but south of Macomb Street. But we've got a project list, a priority list, and we're going to play it out to see how much money we have. We probably spent, with the work that we've done, especially in like Grays Drive and Cadillac Circle, Rivard Court, and then these two other roads here, probably right around about $500,000 of the $1 million that was budgeted for concrete work. So, we'll obviously expend the entirety of the budget based upon the unit prices that we have. We'll see how far that gets us, and then reevaluate after that.
Well, Derek, that's the first time you haven't said anything about Manchester.
Well, there was some.
Most every year it's Manchester,
Right. Yeah, and I know that one of the priorities of the commission was to try to spread the money, if we could, across the community. We prioritize Grays Drive because of the school route, and it's a major, travel path for individuals, and team sports and things of that sort. But we're trying to get to a variety of different places because this is a community millage. We want to try to make sure that the benefit is realized community-wide. Whether you live on the road or whether you traverse the road, we want to spread the money across so it hopefully impacts as many people as possible. This picture on the left is Rivard Court. If you get an opportunity to drive down there, in the next day or two, that road looks beautiful. It almost looks like a brand new subdivision road. We did a combination of complete pad replacement and also jointing, so that it turned out really well. And then on the right is Grays Drive, and there's still some more work we have left to do on Grays Drive. We hope to come back to it. It's just we wanted to be off of that road by the end of August for the school starting, because this road work does really impact the school district and their ability to get around with their busing. So we try to not inconvenience them if at all possible, because they've got schedules they need to keep and we don't want to stand in their way. But these are old pictures. The new pictures aren't included in the slide, but if you want to review that work, feel free to drive those when you get the opportunity. So we do have some remaining road work that we knew that we were going to have to accomplish in subsequent years. One of them being Ferry Road. Because of the reconstruction of the Meridian Road Bridge, we knew that Ferry Road was going to be a detour route, so we didn't put that on our list. But what we did do is we reserved money from the bond, set it aside, and said, okay, we need to make sure that we preserve funds and not spend those funds so we have an available capital to be able to repave that road. So I know that there's talk about Ferry Bridge being redone potentially next year. More than likely it'll probably be the year after. But I don't know, and the chairman and I were talking about this earlier today, I don't know that the reconstruction of the Ferry Road Bridge necessarily precludes us from repaving Ferry Road, because I think that the reason that we didn't do that was because it was a detour route with with the Meridian Road Bridge being out. So I would expect that we could do that next year and accomplish that much needed improvement. We talked earlier about chip sealing East River to the bridge, so that's remaining work that has to be done hopefully yet this fall. And then in addition to that, Wayne County work. So Wayne County's on the island doing work, Meridian Road Bridge. We're all familiar with that project. They are, it appears to be behind schedule. I was out there today. They have one abutment complete. The other one they're currently working on. In talking with the inspectors, they should have already had that second abutment already poured and be working on the span. So we'll have to see how that plan plays out with the rest of the work that they're supposed to do, the repaving of Meridian, which is to follow that bridge replacement. So we'll see.
Derek, before you get into the county work, I'd like to make a comment
Sure.
about all the road work that was done this year. And it's a good report. I'm impressed with all the projects we did. One of the keys to that is, first of all, we've been working on this road stuff for, Lenny, many years, right?
It's been a minute.
So, first thing is thanks to the voters, again. And Derek, thank you for pushing the projects, and you really did push them, and I appreciate that. The scheme was, when we got approval, that we were going to sell the bonds, $6.5 million bond issue. And I know you're tracking the funds, but that's why we were able to do so much this year. And as Derek said, Ferry's a big one, and I think we should proceed next year with it because it's in really bad shape. And if we can get a little more edge widening on that, that'd be great too. So those are a couple comments. A lot of people talk about the roads, and I don't watch Facebook or I'm not on it because you hear negative and positive, a lot of comments. One of the things this is just a reflection of mine. Used to be a guy that was the proprietor at the hardware store on the island. And the last time we had a proposal, which was many years ago, he always walk in and he, in a very positive way, would say, "What the heck are you going to do with the roads?" And I remember showing him, and I asked him to advertise for us this was 2018, I think.
Yep.
Back then at the hardware store, but everybody goes to the hardware store. So anyway, we've made a lot of progress, right?
Sure have.
Yeah.
Really have.
So this is a really good report. One of the keys to this is, and That's why we're going to talk about next year's plan, because the key to getting the good prices, we bid it in February. You got to bid this in the winter when the contractors are all trying to line up their work. And we get the contractor we had, A1,
ASI.
ASI. ASI did a really good job. They were pretty good about it, and we had a good experience there. So we need to be ready with whatever we're going to do and bid it in February, and that's an important thing. That's why I hope next month or in November, final decisions can be made of what we're going to try to do based on budget.
Yeah, and you made a good point earlier. By that time we should have project closeout on a lot of these different projects, concrete and our asphalt work, and know kind of where we stand with the budget. But I'll go over that kind of briefly here towards the end.
Sure.
Kind of where we're at. So
Yeah, I just wanted to interrupt you with those comments there. And,
Sure. And it's all a team effort, and I want to commend our engineers. I mean,
oh, yes.
very, very confident in their abilities. If we give them a project, they make sure it stays on track and they follow through with it. And they're well trusted, by us to get the job done. So, commend them definitely for the
That's a
work.
good point.
And then also the commission. You guys, have done great with providing guidance with regards to what projects to work on, and also the millage design. Right, that was a joint effort. This project list comes out of those conversations. I didn't put this project list together. That was you guys, and to make sure that it impacted and took care of issues on roads that all of us have recognized are a problem. Right, so and we continue to work with the county. That's what's on the screen here is the bridge. It looks like it probably the Meridian Road Bridge. It's probably out of schedule, but I know they're working diligently to try to.
Before we get to that, I just want one final question on the roads. So you mentioned striping.
Yes.
The striping really sets off the roads, makes them look nice. Ferry Road was striped with the old striping. Church is striped. We're going to do Bellevue, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Are we going to do Canal and HCL Jackson?
I don't think so. I don't think those roads were striped before, so they're more of a residential, less of a major road like a Bellevue is. Although Bellevue is residential, it's more of a one of our longer, straighter roads.
Yeah, I would think I'd like to see Canal striped
I can talk to the engineers about
because
that.
it leads to the other roads, and that's frankly one thing I have. And you're going to finish striping Church then?
Yes, there were a couple of roads that they left out, but when they came through and did some striping earlier, because they knew they had to come back and do Bellevue, some of the intersections aren't striped, so they're going to do all those when they come through and do them.
Very good.
I'll make a note about Canal.
Thank you.
Derek, I got one question.
Sure.
The road weight ratings, East River, Meridian, West River, are those all equal?
I believe they're all Class A roads, but I don't know for sure. I know East River Road is because that's the primary detour route for Meridian Road. I'm not sure on West or any of the others, West Road or West River Road. We didn't change anything with regards to the weight limits with the work that we did. So they will be maintained for whatever they were before we did any of our work. So, because usually the weight is achieved, as I'm sure you know, the depth of the asphalt and the depth of the base, and we didn't do anything other than just take a portion of what was there and replace a portion of what was there. So,
The reason for the question is there's an awful lot of cement trucks and other heavy equipment trucks going down East River Road because Meridian is not operational now. So, my concern is that undermining the longevity of that road. I don't know what's happening on West Road, but, as a result of all the construction that's going on, we're putting an awful lot of, heavy equipment on East River Road that was, may or may not be designed for that.
I know when the county sets up their detours, they review the weight and the design characteristics of the roads that they establish the detour on. And I know they did that when they looked at the Meridian Bridge closure, that East River Road was capable of taking it. That's not to say, though, that additional traffic doesn't deteriorate at a quicker pace that road. I mean, I think we all saw that on Meridian. When the Parkway Bridge was closed and all the traffic went on Meridian, the rate of degradation was accelerated significantly. So, I mean, it's a good point, but I know the road is designed to carry that weight. It's just, it probably will, beat it up quicker than what it would be if it didn't take all that traffic.
Well, in my old job that Bill had alluded to, I know that truckers were very aware of what roads they could take with, their 18-wheelers on the road. And some of them made comment that they could not go on certain sections of East River, West River, things of that nature, as they were trying to detour around to get to, and this is when we had the county bridge closed and the toll bridge was open. So, they were trying to find the right roads where they wouldn't get ticketed for and stuff
Yep.
like that. So
Yep.
that's, part of the unanswered question that's in the
Right.
back of my mind.
And I know that back when the Free Bridge didn't have it had more liberal weight limits, there were certain roads on Groseal that couldn't support even what could come across that bridge. So, we rely on the county to set those routes based upon what traffic they need to, service and weight limits they need to service. And that's the established route based upon what their ratings are. So, yep.
Okay, any other comments about the roads? So now we're going to talk about the county, and the footnote I would add before you even start is you and the township supervisor seem to have developed a better relationship with the county than we've ever had, and I guess that's starting to show in a positive way. So give your report on the county.
We try to work with the county as much as we can to get them to come to the table with funding for various projects that we have throughout the community. And I think if you probably take a look at the Act 51 equation that allocates the funds for the lane miles that we have within this community, I think we're on the regular end of receiving more than what we would if we were just receiving the Act 51 dollars that are based off that equation. So, they get X number of dollars per lane mile, and the amount of money they spend here is a lot more than that. For example, the Meridian Road Bridge is $8.5 million. That's a pretty significant project. When the estimate is that they receive $2 million or $2.5 million for roads per year on for the lane miles we have here in Groseal Township. So, we're less of a donor community and more of a recipient of those dollars that they receive. So that's a good thing. That means that they understand we have needs and we have work that needs to be done, and they're allocating more than our fair share of those dollars they receive, if you look at it that way. So part of that is Meridian Road Bridge. We also have a variety of other bridges that are in the process of engineering, and that's Elba Island Drive, Ferry Road Bridge, Swan Island, and then Park Lane. But Park Lane is, I think, lower on the list as far as the ability from their standpoint to get that completed. But I know Elba is currently on engineering, and that is slated within the next 12 months to be replaced. Then Ferry, which is currently being engineered, I think is next, and then Swan Island is probably a good 3 to 4 years out, but that's being reviewed right now in engineering. Yeah,
Elba Island is going to be next?
Elba Island is going to be next, yes.
They changed that from a year ago.
Yes.
Some time ago.
And we need to go over that a little bit because there are some implications from a DPS standpoint with that project and some of our utilities. So we'll go into that here a little bit later.
Okay.
But that is the list in order. How Park Lane fits into that, I'm not sure, but I know that they're trying to find alternative sources of funding to fund that replacement, but it still remains closed, obviously. And then we're trying to work with the county to get East River Groseal Parkway to Ferry resurfaced, and then you would have new surface pretty much all the way from the Meso Island Bridge, or newer surface all the way from the Meso Island Bridge all the way down to Horse Mill, if we can get that taken care of, because that's the only remaining stretch that hasn't really been touched. So we're working with them to try to see if we can't get that done as well. Just as a reminder, though, usually the asphalt plants close on November 15th. So the window that's left to do paving is pretty short here. We got, 2 months left. So if this is off schedule, this could potentially be off schedule. So just keep that in mind. This was the original schedule that was passed along to us for the Meridian Road Bridge, and they have Meridian Road resurfacing on the 25th of September and completed by the 30th of October. So the reality of that is not likely. They have one abutment done. They're working on the second abutment, and those are supposed to be completed by August 7th. So they're probably right about a month to a month and a half behind schedule. So you'd have to push all that out. So this becomes very difficult. If you're pushing this out a month and a half, you're getting close to the asphalt plant's closing. So, just keep that in mind, putting you on notice that that might not be a reality this fall. But
And you're working to get Ferry Road intersection opened up?
so right now the intersection is open for school buses the first 2 hours in the morning from, I think, 6:30 to 8:30, and then the last 2 hours in the afternoon, I think from like 1:30 or 2 o'clock to 3:30. But that intersection, and I wish I had a picture of it, but that's a full reconstruct. So they're taking it all the way down to the dirt, quite a distance from the intersection. So I guess the county, they wanted to rework the alignment of that intersection and then put in some pedestrian controls. So it's more than just a resurfacing or work there. They had to do gas line work. They had to do storm work for the bridge. And now they're doing a reconstruction and alignment of the whole intersection. So that is a pretty substantial project. I was down there tail end of last week, I think last Friday, and they had the whole southbound lane completely ripped out from Ferry back probably a good 300-400 feet. So that's it's a pretty significant project and probably won't be completed until we're being told until the bridge is complete. So, another maybe 45 days, I think if we're lucky. So,
And the only comment I have is, I think I said this to you a couple of months ago too. I understand the resurfacing issue, but there's little traffic now between Island and Ferry. If they opened up when they're going to pave that intersection of Ferry, it'd be great. One of the worst sections with uneven pavement is along West Shore Golf Course along Meridian.
Right.
If they could go to Island this year when they pave Ferry before the bridge is open, or before November 15th, that'd be great.
Yeah.
To get rid of one bad section there. So I just throw that at you.
right.
So I know you know that.
Yep. So that's the bridge and a couple of Wayne County projects. So this is the Elba Island Bridge, and that's scheduled to be replaced within the next probably 12 months, if not a little bit less than that. The issue is we actually have a water main that runs on the west side of that bridge right next to the abutment. And that water main needs to be replaced when they replace the bridge. So as the utility, we're obligated to comply with the county's request to relocate our utility if it's in conflict with their bridge replacement. So this replacement here is actually under engineering with Rains. We went ahead and gave them the green light to do that because our water main's got to be replaced before they can do the bridge, and we don't want to hold that bridge reconstruction up because it's in pretty poor shape. So that is going to be a cost to the township to do that relocation. Before Ann left, she ran the financials on capital reserves for water main replacement. We've got about $635,000 sitting in the bank to do a replacement out there, which should be more than enough to do that work. but also we've got the Meridian Road water main issue that we need to address as well. So I'm gonna have to work with the treasurer, and we'll have to figure out how that all plays out, with regards to those two water main issues at two bridge locations. But this one needs to be done ASAP to make sure that we don't stand in the way of the scheduling of that bridge replacement, so.
I have a question on that, Derek.
Uh-huh.
Why are they saying we have to replace that water main?
My understanding is it's located within their road right-of-way, within their easement. So if it's in their property and in their utility easement, it's our obligation to move it. So
Okay, because it is a new water main that's
it
in
is.
there.
It's probably what, early 90s?
Yeah, it's a 12-inch main now.
Right,
Used to be a 6-inch main.
right. So it's,
When they did the sewer separation,
yeah,
and then they came along and put new 12-inch main all the way down
Right.
Elba.
yeah, it's a shame because it's not all that old. But it's going to be in conflict.
This would be laid at the bottom of the canal.
It would be directionally drilled. Yep. So.
No, they did that to us on the Swan Island, the South Point Bridge.
Mm-hmm.
They told us we had to move the water main. It was a brand-new water main at that bridge. We moved it, and it wasn't necessary to move it.
Yeah, the unfortunate part is we spent a lot of times locating it because we wanted to make sure of that. And it's not necessarily an issue, I believe, on this side, but it is on this side. So it kind of curves in, or it's on an angle. So it's right in conflict. So yeah, unfortunately it's not gonna, and we might have to put it in a casing too, Bill, as you asked about that. So that might dictate the installation method too. So, but yeah, it definitely is. So there'll be more to come with regards to that. That'll be a project that's engineered, bid, and then it'll be before you guys to go ahead and recommend to the board for approval. So that's in process. So a little bit about the budget, and this is more about the roads than anything. As was mentioned, we did bond $6.5 million, so that's just a roundabout figure. And then we did a 2022 tax collection before the bond actually came in. So that was about $1 million in that tax collection, bringing our total revenue for road work to about $7.2 million or $7.5 million. For the road package, the original road asphalt package, we're at about $2.276 million, $421,000 in engineering, and $227,000 in contingency, bringing that total asphalt package to about $2.9 million. Now, this contingency here, we didn't really touch. The additional work that we added was part of this original package. So we had road X, Y, Z, ancillary expenses such as undercutting that was budgeted for at a certain quantity that was never realized. So those additional roads that were added, Canal and HCL, were all part of this $2.276 million. That contingency didn't play into that. So just keep that in mind as we take a look at the bottom line. That money there should be available for next year's projects because it wasn't used as part of this year's project. The concrete road package was $989,000, so about $1 million. Engineering cost, and then contingency, which once again, that project's not closed out yet, so we're not sure if that contingency will play in, but we're not anticipating that it will because this work's pretty straightforward. It's on the surface. We know what we're getting into. There's rarely any unforeseen circumstances that arise when you're doing a concrete pad replacement. So we should have that money available, but we're at $1.2 million total for that project if we realize that contingency. Chip seal was $244,000, $45,000 for engineering, and $24,000 for contingencies. So that contingency, once again, probably shouldn't be touched. And then we did authorize additional chip sealing of $190,000, $35,000 for engineering, and $19,000 for contingency. And the contingency is a straight 10%. So that's where that figure is coming from. So another $244,000 for chip sealing work. Park Lane, $993,000, $183,000 in engineering, and $99,000 in contingency for $1.2 million. So what we've got is $6 million in total which includes all that contingency. We've got $1 million in reserve for ferry, bringing our total to $7 million in revised expense. And there should be about $490,000 of remaining funds from that initial bond and that initial tax collection that would be available for next year. If you recall, the tax revenue less the bond payments left us with a balance annually for road work, and I want to say that number was right around $350,000 per year. But if you recall, our interest rates came in probably better than what we thought they were going to be. So that number, we've got to get a revised number on that. But so for next year, if you look at $490,000, which doesn't include that contingency, which could be upwards of close to $500,000, plus the $350,000 that we would have, we're probably going to have in the realm of $1.1 to $1.3 million next year in work, and that doesn't include Ferry Road. Ferry Road, that money doesn't take into consideration that $1 million that's sitting out there, and we won't know what Ferry Road will come in at, but $1 million is a pretty conservative estimate when it comes to a mill and fill. Like Bellevue, I want to say was like $400,000, $450,000, maybe a little bit less than that. So I would be very surprised if we realized $1 million on Ferry Road. So we could be sitting in a pretty good position to do a substantial amount of work next year, depending upon Ferry, depending upon project closeouts, depending upon contingency. We're in the 1.1 to 1.5 probably with Ferry Road. So keep that in mind as we talk about figures. Good piece of news when I originally put this presentation together. It was actually going to be presented the night before the millage for the drainage millage question. That was on the ballot, I think, on the 9th or the 8th of August. That did pass, and I'm very proud to say, and I take no credit for this whatsoever. It has to do with the commission and I think that the work that the department does, the staff does, and the projects we do. But that millage request renewal passed at a better pace and a better differential than any of the millages that were on the ballot for that evening. So I think we were right around 80% yes to something like 20 or 19% no, something like that, which was once again a better differential than any of those questions. So what that tells me is that the residents recognize that there's a benefit to that millage, and they recognize that probably through the work that has been done. So I wanted to take a minute to kind of address how those dollars have been spent probably over the past 12 to 18 months through the different projects that we worked on. So had a variety of different projects. Island Woods, we worked in there. Meridian Woods, we worked in there. Manchester Ferry, and then the roadside ditching and the West River Road work that we did. So let's just, want to take a minute to just kind of touch on that real briefly. Island. When I came on board probably 3-4 years ago, it was brought to my attention that there was a lot of drainage issues on Island Drive. There was an existing drainage path that hadn't been maintained back in a long time, 20, 30, 40 years, 50 years maybe even. To
That
the
Island Drive or Boulevard?
Island Boulevard, yes. So this property, it's primarily open space. It is open space to the south of Island Boulevard. There was a tremendous amount of drainage that was being directed out onto Island Boulevard and overwhelming the storm system out there. And flooding yards and flooding homes. So utilizing the township's contractor, Detroit Great All, the existing ditch line was recut back there to redirect or re-emphasize the direction of that drainage back towards the Thoroughfare Canal. And that drainage work that we did, we had 4 inches plus rain, I think probably 2-3 weeks ago. We didn't have an ounce of drainage issues, no flooding on Island Boulevard. That corrected that problem and was a tremendous success. So that's one project that we worked on and has proven to be effective in eliminating a problem that we had. Meridian Woods, and I think these pictures probably speak 1,000 words with regards to the issue that was going on in, off Meridian. So this stretch of Meridian is just south of Groseal Parkway. before Manchester on the east side of the road. So the water would come out of the woods here, flood all these yards here on Meridian, and then traverse over to the west side of Meridian and then down towards Hawthorne. So it made a long, winding route towards Hawthorne and then eventually to Frenchman's Creek. And all that water from that woods was draining into a single catch basin, going under the road and traveling through. It wasn't adequate. It wasn't significant enough of a pipe size or a conveyance to carry this much water. So once again, there was an existing drainage ditch back in the woods that hadn't been maintained probably in 50, 60 years, where we went back and recut that. And once again, 4 or 5 inches of rain that we had 2 or 3 weeks ago, those yards were completely dry. This entire project was $16,000. We took care of problems for probably about 6 or 7 houses in that area. And just for reference, we have a drainage grant program, and we authorize up to $5,000 per resident, so long as they spend $5,000 of their own money to correct a drainage problem on their property. So the reason I mention that is we were able to solve a problem for probably 6 or 7 homes at the cost of $16,000 versus what probably would have cost us close to $30,000 under the drainage grant program, plus another $30,000 for the residents. So that to me is a success, and none of these issues exist any longer. So that was a really good project. Manchester to Rucker. Had a significant amount of drainage issues on Manchester, a lot of road flooding, 3-4 inches of road or of water standing on the road after a significant water event. Once again, there was an existing drainage ditch that runs north and south, and we recut that. It comes out, this is looking from, I believe, Rucker. The water flows out of the woods from Manchester to Rucker, then it goes underground, and then it empties out into the Smitty's Cut. And we re-emphasized this ditch line, cleared it. There was a lot of deadfalls in there, recut the ditch, and as a result, that water could flow much easier out of Manchester, the Manchester area, and no longer do we have flooding issues on that road area as a result of this work. Ferry Road drainage. So we did a fair amount of work recutting an existing ditch line on the north side of Ferry. So as you can see, the water is flowing very well now where it didn't used to. This is just an example of the ditch line that was reemphasized back in those woods to carry that water through, and that took care of a lot of drainage issues in the rear yards of a lot of the Ferry Road homes that are on the north side of the road. So that was another project. And then one of the bigger ones that involved a lot of heavy infrastructure work that was just beyond ditching work was the work that we did on West River Road, and this was all near Byramar. So there were the 2 locations. This pipe was almost completely collapsed and was drastically undersized, and the contractor excavated West River Road, installed this new pipe and these head walls on both sides of the road, and now that conveyance was restored and that water could flow through, which has implications not just at this location, but a lot of the upstream locations that feed to this area. And then same issue, but this one's farther down, farther to the north on Island Estates. This is looking on the east side of the road. This structure and this conveyance was almost completely collapsed. Water couldn't be carried east to west, going to underneath West River Road and over to the river, and this work was completed at the cost of about $350,000 for, I believe, for both locations, and that was like last fall. So that's drainage. Just wanted to touch on that briefly to let the residents know kind of where that money's going. Our role and our goal is to identify problems and provide complete solutions to those drainage issues. We want to try to make sure that the money that we're spending impacts multiple properties, and I think we've done that with a lot of the different projects that we've done. We're all familiar with the wastewater treatment plant. working on the ACO work, the Administrative Consent Order work, which is the addition of the new final clarifier. We've worked on primary clarifiers. We're currently working on primary clarifiers, sludge pumps, and then we've done some beautification work over there. So just want to touch on that real briefly. So if you haven't had the opportunity, and I don't know if Ryan will allow you to do it, but if you get a chance and he's not opposed to it, taking a look at the excavation to the north of the wastewater treatment plant, it's a pretty amazing thing to see. I mean, it seems like those guys are building either the biggest swimming pool or trying to dig down to China, but I mean, the hole is immense, and there's a lot that's going into the build of the new clarifier. Bill, do you want to add anything to that?
No, it's impressive, all the work.
It's a big hole. They've been digging on it for a while, but below that hole in the center here, there's piping that goes over to the wastewater treatment plant, and that's all been installed, so they're making steady progress with regards to that project. Primary clarifier rebuilds, if you recall, we did, I think, 1 or 2 in the previous year. This is the third one. So this is actually the inside of the tank, and it actually looks pretty spick and span for what it's used for. But you can see the auger in the bottom that moves things, moves the sludge, moves the material. And then, I don't know if you can see, now let me see. Here, but there's conveyors and chains and flights that move all the material around like a big conveyor at a grocery store, but a much deeper conveyor that moves all that material around. So I think Bill had mentioned earlier that the structure is still drained down.
Yeah, it looks like that still.
Yep, and if you wanted an opportunity to climb down in there and say you've been at the bottom of a sludge clarifier, then it might be your only opportunity to do that. But it's a pretty impressive project. So, and with the completion of that one, we'll have all 3 of them rebuilt within the past 18 months or so. Sludge pumps. So we did replace 4 sludge pumps over at the wastewater treatment plant recently. We do still have some punch list items that we have to get taken care of. We got some priming issues on those, but those have been an issue for a couple of years, and we wanted to get those replaced. So those have been completed within the past 4 months, 5 months, something like that. And then also we've done some landscaping at the wastewater treatment plant to kind of spruce it up a little bit. We had a new sprinkler system installed that draws off the canal, and then also some planting, some general cleanup, and some mulching, some bed creation. So it looks a little bit better, I think, than what it used to be for sure. So we do have some wastewater treatment plant HVAC work that has to be completed. We do have a vendor under contract. They've submitted, I believe, their bonds and their contracts, so we're off and running with regards to that work. But a lot of the stuff has a pretty significant lead time, so that project won't start in earnest until spring of 2024. Getting towards the end here, so I know it's been a long presentation. We do have a lot of engineering work that we have ongoing. So we do have our asset management plan for our water system, which was authorized a couple of months ago. Below here, and it's kind of hard to read, is the overall schedule for the work being done and the timeline for which it's being done. But that project is anticipated to complete about a year from now in October of 2024. So just for the residents' benefit, we've done an asset management plan for our for our sewer system, which included televising and cleaning the entire sanitary sewer system from the north end of the island all the way to the south end of the island, and incorporating the condition assessments that are part of the televising and cleaning into an asset management plan, which lays out a capital improvement schedule for the next 25 to 30 years. The intent underneath the water asset management plan is to have a similar document which gives all of us a plan for the replacement of our water mains in a scheduled fashion, so that we can prioritize from worst to first, the water mains we want to replace. Part of that also is a water reliability study, which is actually before you this evening. I think it's one of our only action items. That's an integral part of the asset management plan, and also is required by the state to be completed every 5 years. The difference between the reliability study and the asset management plan is the reliability study really looks more at flows and capacities, and less on maybe necessarily condition, but flows and capacities are a reflection on condition. So between the asset management plan and the reliability study, they'll kind of fit together in like, tooth and gear with regards to asset management of our water system. So we're not just sitting around doing capital work. We're guided by documents that have been developed by professionals that provides for us a pathway, a game plan on how we're doing our capital improvements. So I wanted to mention those as well. Yeah, we talked about that. I think one of the last ones I have here is refuse. So we are currently under contract with Priority, and this is incorrect. We've already accepted the second option last year, bringing our contract to November of 2024. So about a year from now, our contract will be up. Our rates under that contract increased about 1.8% annually. So when we take a look at inflation, that contract actually aged really, really well for us. I don't think anybody anticipated, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10% inflation. So, we can't claim to be, the smartest guys in the room and gals in the room with regards to how that contract was crafted, but it just did age good for us. There have been some service concerns, and I think that they've probably occurred more recently in the past year or two. But if I were to guess, a lot of those service concerns are attributable to staffing. As you know, the world is understaffed. Everywhere you go, it's hard to find help. And I don't know that being a refuse collector on the back of a trash truck, dealing with the adverse conditions that they do, it's not a real exciting job. I'm sure they have their hard times filling those positions. So when you have a hard time filling positions and you have a hard time, I think, retaining staff because of the field that they're in and the way that the economy is right now, you get a lot of turnover. If you have all this turnover, you have guys forgetting routes or not familiar with the routes, and you have missed stops. And I think in talking with my counterparts in other communities that have other vendors, it's kind of a similar theme, okay, with regards to all the trash collection providers right now. So the equipment is really good. We don't have any issues with broken down equipment or leaking hydraulic lines. We continually try to work with them with regards to the issues that we do have. If it's missed stops or misplaced trash cans, or we have a lot of complaints about recyclables ending up in the trash can or in the trash truck rather than the recycle truck. So we're always working with them with regards to trying to figure those solutions out to those problems. But as a commission and as a community, we're going to have a decision to make with regards to the bidding of our contract as we're out of options effective November 2024. And I would be surprised if the current provider would be willing to extend the contract at a 1.8% inflationary component. So I think if that was possible, that we would have to seriously consider that, but I would doubt that would be a possibility. So we're probably looking at a rebid or a bidding of the refuse contract for next year. So, and that is a process. So the fact that we know that it's November 2024, you really do need probably a good 6 to 8 months to do that correctly. So we're positioned well with starting to talk about it now. So, yes.
That it? Water supply.
Not yet. Water
One
supply.
more. And just from the water supply side, we've talked about the asset inventory. Lead service lines continue to be a challenge that we have to address, and John works diligently on that and is staying on schedule. We talked a little bit about the Elba Island Bridge line replacement, and then we do currently have an issue with the Meridian Bridge line damage. So we're currently, in litigation with regards to that damage that was caused to our main by the bridge project that's going on out there.
That's the path they took, is to go with litigation.
Correct. Yep. So we weren't able to obtain any assistance from them voluntarily. So, okay. So, and that concludes the presentation. My apologies for the lengthiness
Oh,
of it.
It was very
I think
good.
I
Very
think it's
good.
important, and Derek, you did a great job pulling this
Thank you.
together.
Very good.
Well, thank you very